Two, one. Hello and welcome to Monkey Business, a podcast for business people everywhere understanding about their monkey mind. And I'm Rosalind Palmer. Today I'm delighted to be joined by Andrea Gontkovicova, all the way from Prague. Now, Andrea has a phenomenal CV. I'm sure you can check her out on LinkedIn. She is CEO of Eastern Europe across 3 different countries for Philip Morris International. She's Slovakian Woman of the Year. She is a published author in 2 books, and what's more, she's a wife and a mother. And Andrea joins me today from Prague. I'm delighted that I actually know Andrea because I have the pleasure of being in a book that was published with her as well. And I got to spend some time with her in the wonderful city of Pula and got to know her. Don't be fooled by Andrea's humble demeanour. Behind it is an absolute tenacity and somebody who has really come from a place where she probably couldn't even imagine the role in the world that she lives in today. Would you say that's true, Andrea, from your background to where you are today?
I would say it's absolutely true. I always could imagine and was imagining many things, but the world as we live it, as I live in it today, it's far beyond any of my imagination from my childhood, let's say.
And what was your childhood like then? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Slovakia, as you mentioned, in the mountainous area, so really beautiful, but also quite tough in terms of nature and environment. And most importantly, I grew up in Slovakia during the times when there was still this iron curtain. So it was the time of scarcity, really regulation, tough regulation. Just to give you a couple of examples, if we wanted to have some fruits for Christmas, each family could get maybe 4 bananas and a kilo of oranges. When I wanted to get my skiing costume, because I'm a really excited skier, I really didn't have a lot of choice in terms of colors or sizes of the skiing costume. I just, if I wanted to go skiing, I pretty much needed to buy what was in the store if it was there. So that was my childhood, but it was still very pretty, you know, deep friendships, a lot of fun, a lot of laughs. So it was very happy childhood, but it was regulated and many material things were scarce. On the other hand, yes.
I was going to say, what were the expectations of your family really about what life would look like for you going forward, what your future life would look like? Because they probably couldn't imagine the life you live today. So how did they give you a sense of what their expectations of you were?
I think there were not really expectations meeting my current way of living. I think we were very much focused on family, friendships, relationships, happy life, but in terms of having the opportunities in terms of work, in terms of traveling, in terms of experiences, which I have today, I really don't think anybody was dreaming that far. So it was pretty much the continuation of what we were living at that times and developing it further, but not really to the amplitude where I am today.
Yeah, so you had a double whammy really. Not only were you in a country behind the Iron Curtain that didn't really feel it had everything that the West had available to it, but you were also in a very rural district within that country as well.
Yes.
What do you think coloured your mindset as a child for wanting different things, wanting more, wanting out of there?
One of my really basic features of my mind is curiosity. And since I remember myself, I have always been curious about the life I'm living today. Is it the life which I'm going to live tomorrow? So always curious about that. I have always been curious about the world. I wanted to understand better. I wanted to know more. I wanted to see how it is, you know, in a different country, how it is in a different family, how is it in a different job. So one of really main elements of me driving me forward is really my curiosity, and I still have it today. So I'm still very curious about what are the days and years ahead of me to what are they going to bring me.
And I imagine with you also a thirst for knowledge, because how many languages do you speak?
I speak Slovak, Czech, English. I have a pretty good Spanish and Russian, and I can I understand and speak some French, and I German. So I am pretty well anchored in the Central Europe, definitely.
What do you love about having all those languages? Is it the ability just to learn, the ability to communicate? What's that brought you?
What I really love about languages and what is the driving force for me to learn and speak them is the proximity I get to the cultures and to people who speak those languages. Because I can really understand very well that if I speak English, I can still express my feelings and I can talk about my culture, etc. But it's only when I am really in Slovakia with the Slovak people, listening to Slovak music, that's really 100% of how my Slovak soul comes out. And I have got the same experience with, for example, Spanish people, with British people, with French people. It's only when we are really in that environment with people speaking their native language, singing their native songs or reading their native poetry, that it's really 100% of the experience of that culture. So it's really this curiosity to get into the minds of and hearts of those people that drives me.
Does that help you in your role? Because, as I mentioned, you are CEO across 3 countries, I believe, and you're in a market that's changing. You're in a changing market. We're in a changing world. Isn't that the truth? I never expected the kind of things you've been having to do this year. And you've got different cultures, different languages, different people. How do you navigate that?
You are really spot on. I think one of the main reasons why I can understand my customers, my consumers, is really the fact that I can sit down with them and I can have a pretty natural and authentic discussion with them. And as I mentioned, and as you mentioned, I am in charge of Slovakia. I am Slovak, so that's an obvious thing. Now I live in Prague. You know, very similar language. I can sit down with the Czech people as well, and we can have a very authentic and open, honest discussion. And I have a different experience in Hungary because I don't speak Hungarian, but I have a very good team there who is actually doing what I am doing in Czech and in Slovakia for me, and then they translate that and transport that experience to me. So I have different attitudes across my 3 countries, but I really enjoy the fact that I can get very close to people in Slovakia and in Czech Republic.
Do you ever feel like you're a referee between different cultures?
No, not at all.
Good.
I am tailor making the things. I'm tailor making the things for each of them. So for the Slovaks, Slovak solution. For Czech solution. For the Hungarians, Hungarian solution. There is nothing like one size fits all. No.
Excellent. And is your parent company American? Is that an American company originally, PMI?
It used to be, but there was a spin-off.
Yeah.
At the beginning of the 21st century, and now our main base is in Switzerland. So you could say that we are an international company based in Switzerland.
So you don't have friction with the international. I'm kind of thinking, you know, Brexit and the EU, and you know, sometimes when cultures come together, it doesn't sit as well as one might hope.
No, not really. I have never experienced cultural frictions in the company. Actually, we are very, very international. Even when I look at my team in Prague, I have Slovaks, I have Czechs, I have Hungarians, I have Romanians, I have Russians, and I could go on. So already in Prague, not even an international headquarters, it's just a headquarters for the cluster of these three countries. And I would count up to 10 nationalities in my team, I think. So it's a very open in that perspective.
So I'm going to think about gender now, because again, that girl growing up, I imagine not only was the world you're in not understood because it didn't exist, the world we live in, you know, no concept of the Iron Curtain coming down. What were the expectations maybe on a woman within those businesses? Because to my mind, you seem to have pulled it off. You are not only the CEO of you know, an amazing 3-country strong force, you're also a wife and a mother. What was the expectation of you as a woman growing up?
I think one of the main reasons why I have come where I am today is the fact that I didn't think about it, and I even didn't care about it. I always follow the feeling which I have here.
Yeah.
And if I want to get somewhere, I just do everything what I can to get there. Yes, it was not always easy, but in general, I had some very surprising experiences actually. When I look, for example, I have 2 sons, as you mentioned, and so I had to, and I decided to have a break from my professional life for a year with each of them. And the biggest support I got during my pregnancy and maternity leave, actually I got it from men. 2 different men, and I got it from them. Also, when I was, for example, moving into international headquarters, I worked there for 4 years, and I was in charge of the EU strategy. One could say really a Slovak woman to be, you know, chosen to get that position to synchronize and execute strategy across EU countries, so EU-wide. You could say that there could have been back, or whether somebody from France or Poland or UK, and it was me. So I think the approach which I have taken really focused on what I want to do, deliver the highest quality, really align well with people, talk with people, collaborate with them, and don't pay attention to any, or really very little to corridor discussions or things like that. I think it's paying back. So I'm very happy about that.
And what about the discussions in your own head? It strikes me that you don't really have an issue with being driven, being on the button, keep going. Can you say no to yourself, or how do you create balance?
It's very difficult for me to say no to myself, but I'm also disciplined in that perspective, and I'm trying to listen to my inner voice, as we call it. And sometimes I just have to overrule even my own appetite. So the most important element there, I think, is to have the balance between mind and body. And I am really well disciplined in that. I don't succeed in 100%, I have to admit, but I succeed maybe around 80%. When I really train my mind, I'm meditating, reading, relaxing. I'm having intellectual discussions with my friends, and sometimes with my husband. Not sometimes, very often. The most discussions I have first with my husband, and then my friends and my colleagues. So really train the mind, but also again meditation, reading, and relaxation. But at the same time, I'm paying a lot of attention to my body. I don't spend hours doing exercise, but I do it every day. I do exercise regularly, maybe 30 minutes. I do walks. I really pay a lot of attention to having enough sleep, etc., etc. So to keep my mind and my body somehow in harmony, the best possible. And I think that helps a lot. That helps a lot, and really listening to the world, to the voice which is inside.
You didn't mention sleep.
Sleep, yes, that's in the bucket of my body, yes, where I have to allow my body to have enough sleep. I'm really useless when I don't sleep enough. And I have tried it, and I saw how useless I was. So I have to have at least 7 hours of sleep. Otherwise,
Are you a member of the 5 a.m. club or not?
I'm not a member of 5 a.m., but I am a member of the 6 a.m. club that I can do. Yes.
You get to bed on time the night before as well.
I go to bed between 9:30 and 10:15. And in that case, I can get up even slightly before 6 o'clock. So that's my best day, definitely.
So what are you feeding your mind with? You mentioned meditation, you mentioned reading. What's the kind of things that you're feeding your mind with, or your mindset with, to have it more healthy?
So I start with meditation, where the main elements, the two main elements is gratitude and forgiveness. And really, really focused on having my mind cleared up and freed up from any grudges and any bad experiences and feelings. So I do that every day, really. And I have so many things to be grateful for, and sometimes I have a few things to forgive to myself, yeah, or to others. So that's the two main elements of meditation, and I could go on. Then what I do reading. I have to do quite a lot of reading for my job. And that's professional reading, understanding. It's not always words, sometimes, and very often it's numbers, and it's surveys and researches, etc., etc. But I also balance it to the best possible extent with reading just normal books. For example, I'm planning to read a book about Marlene Dietrich. I have just read some crimi stories. I also like reading about the lives of various artists. So I really go out in a completely different direction when I read a book to balance again the reading which I do for my job.
Yeah, you're getting the left and the right brain.
Exactly.
And talking of books, you are a published author in 2 books. What are the 2 books? Is one leadership and the other, is it parenting?
No, the other one is conscious leadership.
Oh, conscious leadership. Oh, excellent. What are your thoughts about creating conscious leaders? What would you say are some key things for a leader to become a conscious leader?
I think it's going maybe 2-3 levels deeper, because sometimes the circumstances create a leader of you. Mother is a leader for her kids. Sometimes, in a couple, I am married, so in a couple, sometimes a husband is a leader in one area and a wife is a leader in another area. So these are very natural circumstances when we are leading something. And what is really, really important is that we should be thinking about what kind of leadership we want to play, even in these very natural circumstances, not to mention the leadership in office or in my job, because the kind of leadership I do for my children is going to define their approach to many areas in their life. The type of leadership I do in some of the areas of our common life with my husband are going to define our future.
Yeah.
And then in the kind of leadership I do in my company, when I am in charge of more than 2,000 people across these countries, is going to have a really instrumental influence on the business results of our company. So one thing is to be a leader, and it's a completely different thing to think about what kind of leader I want to be. And that has to be, for me, that is definitely a conscious thinking and decision making. So
wow.
that's
And your children, what values or consciousness or leadership traits, or what are you showing them? What are you demonstrating to them?
I think what is really pouring out of my personality is what I had mentioned already, is the curiosity. And I think that as long as we are curious, we are not getting old.
Yeah.
And there are so many things which I'm looking forward to, and I think they really get it very naturally, and they have dreams, and they have, their imagination is really unleashed. Another thing which I really respect and I am passing on to my kids is to be humble, because it really doesn't matter whether we have been successful up till today, whether we have, gone further than we have ever dreamt about. That doesn't matter. I think what really matters is to be able to be humble, because again, in combination with curiosity, that gets you further. And the third element, which I would emphasize, is authenticity, because I think it's so liberating when we can be ourselves, just through ourselves. That gives us the most beautiful colors, gives us the best possible freedom, gives us everything what we can dream about. So I would say these are the three main traits which I would be so happy if my kids really get it under their skin.
And when has being authentic, being true to yourself, being true to your principles cost you? When have you had to walk away from things?
I had that experience, and it was so painful. It happened at the end of the year 2015 for me, when I needed to make a decision about really redirecting my career from the path which I had been working on for more than 10 years at that time. And it was at the time when Philip Morris really developed and was ready to commercialize products which at that time had the potential to reduce harm. Mm-hmm. And I was doing something completely different. I was doing regulation, fiscality, the EU strategy, etc. And as soon as I learned that these products are ready to be commercialized, actually, I decided I wanted to bring them to my countries. That's why I'm here in Slovakia, Czech, and Hungary. I wanted to bring it to my region, to my people. And that was a huge change in my career. And I was actually risking a lot, because I left behind 10, 15 years of my career, reputation, reputation. And I said, I know I can do this, and I know I could grow further. But as a matter of fact, I'm still strong enough and curious enough to try a different thing. And I wanted to bring these products here, and I was super lucky that I got that opportunity. So actually it was me who went for a big risk, but it was also the company who went for a big risk, because I didn't have any commercial experience till then.
So this, just to be clear, this is them going into non-smoking smoking. I don't know how to explain it. How would you explain that?
It's going away from cigarettes, because the most harmful thing about cigarettes is not the tobacco, is not nicotine, even though it's very addictive, but it's actually the fact that the cigarettes burn and they produce smoke. And in the smoke, you have thousands of really harmful and potentially harmful constituents. So in Philip Morris, we have been developing and researching other solutions where we could deliver nicotine to somebody who still wants it or who still can't quit, but in a less harmful way. And that's why we have developed products. For example, the product which we have on the markets here in Slovakia, Czech, and Hungary these days is a product which is not burning tobacco, but it's heating it with a very controlled temperature, which doesn't produce smoke, and produces just aerosol with nicotine, but on average 95% less of these harmful constituents.
Wow. So I don't smoke, but my son does. I guess what you're saying is you have the satisfaction of smoking in a way, but without the harmful chemicals and side effects that cause the illness. Is that right?
It's not called smoking anymore. You have the satisfaction of nicotine,
Oh,
I would say, because that's what actually the smokers, what they are looking for in cigarettes is nicotine.
okay. Yeah.
What they get on top are those thousands of harmful and potentially harmful constituents, yes, substances. So as long as there is something which is not burning
Hmm.
and delivering nicotine, it's already very high chances that these constituents are decreased significantly. And in the product which we commercialize, IQOS, there is on average 95% less of these substances. So
So your principle was about creating something more healthy yet sustainable within a market that you were already in, and you took a real risk on that. I love that you went.
not necessarily more healthy, but it's less harmful. Let's say it's less harmful because you still have nicotine there, which is still addictive, and the best thing would be for a smoker to quit. But we also know that irrespective of all the communication, all the knowledge, there are still very high numbers of smokers who can't quit or who don't want to quit. So that's why we are really working on solutions which would give them what they are looking for, again, nicotine, but in a way which is less harmful.
Yeah, as a therapist, I find that very interesting. You know, you're taking what they get from that relationship, but you're making it less harmful. So I do like that. What have been some of the challenges you've met in your career what have been the biggest challenges you've met in your career, and how have you overcome them?
The biggest challenges, and I don't think it's going to be a surprise, is the fact how difficult it is for a human being to change a habit.
Yeah, hello.
So, because we are creatures of habits, yes, and as long as we do something, there are different theories, whether 30 times or 60 times, our brain just goes into the modus operandi of relaxation, and whatever the consequences of that habit are, the brain enjoys the fact that it can switch itself off on that activity, and we just follow the path which we have created for ourselves. And that's actually the main challenge for smokers, to either quit or to switch to a less harmful product, because the path has been, walked so many times, not only during a day, but imagine during months and years.
Pathways, yeah. Like grooves in the mind, as I like to call them. Yes, neural pathways.
Exactly.
Mm.
So and so it's really really very difficult. But the good thing is that once we get a person just on a trial for 5 or 7 days, and they really really walk this different path, after 7 days, they really don't want to go back. So on one side, I had learned how difficult it is to get the commitment of a human being to try to change the habit. On the other hand, I also got a learning that if you really stand up to it for 7 days, you are really on a good path and beyond the toughest times, and you are really on a good track to succeed. And that can be applied to many other things. I don't think only smoking.
And what's the mantra in your mind when you're changing a habit or you're doing something better for yourself? What goes on in your mind? What are you saying to yourself?
I always have to imagine and remember how do I want to feel afterwards.
Mm.
I give you an example. I love swimming, and I go swimming in the morning, and I have to be very honest. To jump into the cold water, that's not the best feeling of my morning. what is the best feeling of my morning is after I have swam 1 kilometer or 1.5, whatever. When I come out of that water, that's the reward which I am looking for. So I'm trying to really focus on the ultimate experience, ultimate feeling which I want to get from anything. And yes, sometimes the jump into the cold water is super shocking. Sometimes anything else which I have to go through on the route to that experience, ultimate experience, is very painful, or it's long, or it's boring, or I don't know, many different types of feelings. But I always focus on the ultimate experience I want to get out of that. And that helps me to get through tough waters.
And boy, I'm sure we all face lots of those. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd effectively like to ask yourself?
There would be one point which I would like to share with listeners. And I have lived through that. So I know the content of all this, and I am saying it with all the authenticity which I can. And the message is that anything is possible in this world. And as soon or as long as you can dream it, you can live it. If I look at my life, where I grew up, how I grew up, the circumstances I grew in, again, I was very happy. It was a very happy childhood, but it was a very different childhood of my kids.
Yeah.
And if I could get from that starting point to where I am today, that's a pure document of the fact that anything and everything is possible. So I wish your listeners to have big eyes, to dream big, and as long as they can dream it, I'm sure they can live it, sooner or later.
I love it. And just one point of curiosity, what does Slovakian Woman of the Year, what do you do? What is your role?
My role is exactly what I am doing now. At least that's my explanation of my role, is to really encourage all the young people in Slovakia, whether they are women or men, you know, just human beings in Slovakia or in Czech Republic or wherever I am, wherever I live, is to give these people boost and really encourage them to dream, to be curious, to go for whatever they can imagine. Because, you know, again, if I could get from that point to where I am today, I am a big optimist that if you decide to do something which you are even afraid to verbalize, sooner or later you will make it happen. So that's how I take it.
Well, you've gone beyond something you couldn't verbalize. You've gone to something you couldn't even imagine. So I absolutely love that. So who knows what's out there for everybody, hey? Even things we can't imagine. And I like to do that sometimes. I was thinking back in 10-year chunks only yesterday while I was out for a walk, and I constantly say to myself, wow, 10 years ago I couldn't have imagined this life, and probably 10 years before that I couldn't have imagined that life. And so it is lovely to look at that, but it's lovely for you to give that inspiration to other people, that they obviously, the sky's the limit. So Andrea, it's been my absolute pleasure. I'm so honoured to have you here today. And I love being a fellow author of yours in one of our books. Are there more books in the pipeline for you? Do you want to do more writing?
I'm thinking about it. I am not in a project yet, not at the moment, but I think that's one of the ways how to really pass my message to young people, older people, to humanity in general.
Well, maybe I need to go write your autobiography, because I think yours is already a fantastic story. I can see it up there on the shelf. So I think maybe after this call, we need to have a bit of a chat. So this is Monkey Business. I'm Rosalind Palmer. You've been listening to a wonderful episode with my guest, Andrea Gontkovicova, all the way from Prague. And again, thank you, Andrea, and keep listening. More episodes are soon.